Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, really bring you those crucial insights you need to be truly well informed.
hmm
Today, we're exploring something, well, universal, yet often unspoken: how we care for the dying and navigate the really intricate landscape of grief.
It's a journey that touches everyone, absolutely. And thankfully, our sources, they show there's a wealth of knowledge and support out there. Maybe far more than many of us realize.
Right. So, our mission today really is to pull back the curtain on care for the dying and those who grieve.
Exactly. We've gathered insights from some comprehensive nursing and healthcare sources, hoping to empower you.
Whether you're preparing to support someone, maybe processing your own experience, or just seeking a deeper understanding.
Yeah, we'll dive into the nuanced terminology, the common experiences, and some surprisingly practical ways to approach care.
Okay, so let's kick things off with the distinction. It's one that I think even for people pretty familiar with this area often gets a little muddled. I'm talking about palliative care versus hospice care. Lots of people seem to use them interchangeably,
They do.
but our sources really draw some vital differences. How do these two frameworks, both about compassionate care, how do they truly differ in scope, in purpose?
That's an excellent place to start. They are closely related, definitely, but they serve distinct purposes. So palliative care is actually the broader umbrella term.
Okay, broader how?
Think of it as a highly structured, really organized system. It's designed to provide comprehensive relief, physical, emotional, social, cultural, even spiritual needs.
Comprehensive.
And for patients and their families dealing with any serious, life-threatening, or chronic illness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the prognosis is.
Right, so not just end of life.
Not at all. What's really transformative about it is its patient-centered approach. It focuses on quality of life right from the diagnosis onward.
And it's not like a rare thing anymore, is it? I saw a statistic in our sources, something like over 75% of U.S. hospitals with 50 or more beds.
That's right. Over 75% now have formal palliative care programs.
Wow. What does that tell us? That widespread adoption, what's it signal about how we're maybe evolving our approach to serious illness?
It really emphasizes a shift, I think, a move towards prioritizing comfort and dignity all the way through a patient's illness journey, not just at the very end.
Okay, so that's palliative care. Then where does hospice fit in?
So hospice care is a specialized type of palliative care, but it specifically focuses on the end of life.
Ah,
This is typically when a patient has a prognosis of, say, 6 months or less to live.
got it. 6 months or less.
That's right. It's a model built on, well, profound compassion, holistic support, and expert medical management. The goal is allowing individuals to live their final months with as much comfort and peace as possible.
And the reach is pretty significant too, right? I think the number was 1.1 million patients back in 2018.
Yes, 1.1 million received hospice care, and
Hmm.
over half of them, 51.5%, actually passed away in their own homes.
That really says something, doesn't it? About comfort, dignity, familiar surroundings.
It really does. And hospice isn't just, managing pain. It's delivered by this incredible interdisciplinary team.
Right, not just doctors and nurses.
Exactly. Physicians, nurses, chaplains, social workers, therapists, all working together. And the hospice benefit itself, it covers medications, supplies, and crucially, bereavement counseling for families.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah, often extending up to 13 months after the death. It's a truly comprehensive support system.
Okay, so we have these foundational care models, palliative and hospice, creating a framework for support. Now, let's turn to the intensely human experience at the heart of it all,
Right.
grief.
hmm
We often toss around terms like loss, grief, mourning, almost as if they're the same thing.
Very common.
But our sources show there's a more precise language here, a language that can actually deepen our understanding. Can you maybe quickly clarify those distinct roles? Loss, grief, mourning, and bereavement. For anyone thinking they're just synonyms.
Absolutely. It helps to break it down. Think of loss as the event itself, the human experience of something being gone. That's what triggers everything else.
Just trigger, okay.
Then, grief is your response to that loss. It's that complex internal world. Feelings, thoughts, physical sensations, social shifts, spiritual questions all swirling inside you.
That internal world.
Right. And it's really important to remember that what we call uncomplicated grief is considered a completely normal, expectant response. It's not pathology.
Okay. And then there's mourning. That's more the outward expression of the grief.
Exactly. This is where culture, religion, spirituality, personal beliefs, they all shape how people process loss publicly.
So things like wakes, funerals.
Precisely. Wakes, funerals, sitting Shiva, wearing black, decorating gravesites, all those visible actions. They're structured ways we acknowledge and process loss within our communities.
Got it. And the last one, bereavement.
Bereavement is the entire journey. The period of time someone is actively navigating that loss, living within that landscape of grief and mourning.
The whole period.
Yes. And as we mentioned, hospice often provides bereavement counseling for families during this critical period, recognizing it's a process that takes time.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Because it's so easy to fall into traps when thinking about grief. I found some, frankly, surprising myths in the sources, things that can actually get in the way of healthy processing.
Oh, absolutely. There are many.
Can you shed some light on the common misconceptions we really need to sort of debunk?
Happy to. One really pervasive myth is that grief and mourning are the same for everyone, or that grief follows some predictable, orderly, stage-like progression, like Kubler-Ross's stages, which were really about dying, not grieving loss itself.
Right, people often misapply those stages.
They do. Our sources are very clear. Grief is unique to each person and rarely linear. People don't just move through grief in neat steps. It's often messy.
Yeah, messy is a good word. And the idea that the best approach is to move away from grief, or that the goal is to get over it, that's a huge one.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's unhelpful. Our sources emphasize that neither is true. Grief isn't something you just discard or conquer. It gets integrated, becomes part of you.
Integrated, not overcome.
Exactly. And another one, that tears are just weakness that's still out there. Tears are a natural, often vital expression of pain and loss, a release.
Okay, so we've busted some myths.
Yeah.
Now let's explore the different sort of shades of grief. Because it's far from being just one thing, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
There are distinct categories. Think about that immediate, overwhelming wave of feelings when a death is sudden, unexpected.
Right.
One researcher, Lindemann, back in the 40s actually, described this as acute grief.
Acute grief.
Yeah, it's a tumultuous set of feelings and reactions. Shock, denial, profound physical symptoms like actual chest pain or shortness of breath.
Wow, physical symptoms too.
Definitely. Also, preoccupation with the deceased, guilt, anger, and clear changes in behavior, just feeling completely lost.
That sounds incredibly intense. Does that initial shock, block out other emotions, or do they all just slam into you at once?
It often feels like a collision, yeah. A confusing mix. Which leads kind of naturally to another type, anticipatory grief.
Anticipatory. So grief before the loss actually happens.
Exactly. It's the sadness, the fear, the anger experienced before an expected loss, like with a long terminal illness.
So you're grieving the future you won't have.
Right. And mentally preparing, in a way. It can be a heavy burden, but for some it might provide a bit of a head start on the processing.
Okay. Then there's disenfranchised grief. That was a term I found really powerful, coined by Kenneth Doka.
Ah, yes. Disenfranchised grief, a crucial concept. It refers to losses that aren't socially sanctioned or openly acknowledged, or maybe even seen as valid by society.
That really hits home how societal norms can shape or even stifle our grieving. Can you give some examples? What kind of losses might be disenfranchised?
Sure. Think about the grief after a divorce, which some people might dismiss, or after an abortion. The profound loss of a beloved pet, sometimes people feel they can't openly mourn that.
Right. People might say it was just an animal.
Exactly. Or even a death due to a stigmatized illness, maybe like HIV/AIDS back in the day. Or suicide, where the social support might be lacking or complicated by judgment. It's grief that doesn't get a public airing.
Grief that society doesn't quite know how to handle.
Precisely. Then there's complicated grief. This is where things can really go off track for someone.
Okay, complicated sounds serious. Like it goes beyond what we'd call a normal response.
It does. Complicated grief is essentially chronic or exaggerated grief. It significantly impairs a person's ability to function in daily life. It persists intensely for a long time.
Impairs function.
Yeah, sometimes so severely that mental health professionals might diagnose it as a specific disorder. Persistent complex bereavement disorder is a term sometimes used. It just highlights how debilitating it can become.
Wow. Okay. And the last one you mentioned was ambiguous loss. That term really struck me too.
Yes. Pauline Boss's work on ambiguous loss. It refers to these unclear losses, losses without resolution or closure. It's very challenging.
Unclear how?
Two main types. First, when a person is physically absent, but still psychologically present. Think of a soldier missing in action, or a kidnapping victim. There's no certainty.
That constant uncertainty.
Right. The second type is the opposite. The person is physically present, but psychologically absent.
Like someone with advanced dementia or a severe brain injury.
Exactly. They're there, but the person you knew, the relationship you had, is fundamentally gone. It's a loss you live with daily, without the finality of death.
That concept of ambiguous loss, it really captures those situations where closure just feels impossible. Like you said, waiting for someone missing or trying to connect with a loved one lost to dementia. It's a unique kind of pain, isn't it?
It truly is.
What's so insightful here, I think, is realizing that by understanding these different types, acute shock, anticipatory grief, the silent burden of disenfranchised grief, the persistence of complicated grief, the limbo of ambiguous loss, we can move beyond just saying, I'm sorry for your loss.
Exactly. We can offer support that might actually resonate more deeply with someone's specific, maybe hidden struggle.
Okay, so understanding the types of grief is key. Now let's talk about the actual journey of mourning. It's not just feeling bad. Our sources suggest there are processes, maybe even tasks involved.
Yes, it's an active process. One group of researchers, Niemeyer and colleagues, identified 9 common phenomena during what they call meaning reconstruction. This is about how grief shapes your experience as a survivor.
Meaning reconstruction.
Okay.
What are those phenomena?
Well, they include that initial shock and disbelief we talked about, then denial, often that sensation of somatic distress, the physical aches and pains.
Right, the body keeps the score.
It does. There's often preoccupation with the image of the deceased, maybe running scenarios over and over. Feelings of guilt, anger is very common too.
Anger at the situation, at the person, at yourself.
All of the above, potentially. Then you often see a change in behavior, maybe depression, feeling disorganized, unable to concentrate.
Like you can't get anything done.
Right. But crucially, the process ideally moves towards a reorganization of behavior, finding new routines, maybe new interests or activities, and ultimately acceptance.
Acceptance. Not forgetting, but...
Not forgetting, no. More like acknowledging the reality and finding a way to live with it. These aren't necessarily neat linear stages, remember. They're common experiences that contribute to rebuilding a sense of meaning after loss.
Okay. And building on that, there's a well-known framework from William Worden, his 4 tasks of mourning. This really emphasizes that individuals need to actively do things to navigate grief. It's work.
It absolutely is active work. The first task Worden identifies is to accept the reality of the loss.
Seems obvious, but probably harder than it sounds.
Much harder. It's a profound internal shift, moving from disbelief to acknowledgement on an emotional level. The second task is to process the pain of grief while also caring for oneself.
Okay, so feel the pain, but don't let it destroy you.
Exactly. It acknowledges that suppressing the pain isn't healthy. You have to work through it. But you also need to maintain basic self-care, eating, sleeping, finding moments of respite. It's a balance.
Processing pain, adjusting. Sounds like a lot. It really underscores that grief isn't passive, is it? It takes effort.
It requires immense inner strength and effort, yes. The third task is to adjust to a world without the deceased.
That sounds huge. What does that involve?
It can mean adjusting to a new identity, maybe no longer being a spouse or a parent in the same way, adjusting roles, daily routines, maybe even practical things like finances or household chores. The world is fundamentally different.
A whole new landscape.
Indeed. And the fourth task, which is sometimes overlooked but so vital, is to find an enduring connection with the deceased while embarking on a new life.
Enduring connection. So, not cutting ties.
Not at all. It's about finding a new way to relate to the person's memory, integrating the loss into your ongoing life, holding on to the love and the meaning, but allowing yourself to move forward, to invest in new relationships and activities. It's not about replacement, it's about integration.
Finding a way to carry them with you differently. Okay. So, with all this understanding of the types of grief, the myths, the tasks, what does this mean for actually supporting someone who's grieving? What are the practical things we can do, the compassionate approaches that genuinely help?
Well, our sources point to several key strategies. First, and maybe simplest but hardest, is just facilitating the grieving process.
How do you do that?
It means being fully present, truly listening, attentively, without judgment, offering appropriate, comforting touch if it feels right and is welcomed. It's not about having the right words or fixing it. It's about simply being there. Your presence is powerful.
It's being there. Okay. And what about their emotions?
Understanding and supporting their emotions is critical. People grieving will likely experience anger, guilt, fear about the future, maybe all at once.
Right.
We need to offer empathetic words that reflect acceptance of their feelings, Not trying to talk them out of it, not judging, not saying you shouldn't feel that way. Just acknowledging, it sounds like you're feeling really angry right now. Or, it's okay to feel scared.
Validating their experience.
Exactly. Validation is key. Also, encouraging support systems. Gently reminding them about friends, family, or maybe suggesting formal bereavement groups if appropriate. Connection helps.
Don't let them isolate themselves.
Right. And for many people, offering spiritual support plays a huge role. Recognizing and respecting their spiritual or religious beliefs, maybe facilitating contact with clergy or spiritual advisors if they wish. It can be a powerful source of meaning and hope.
Okay, that's about supporting others.
Yeah.
But what about for individuals navigating their own grief? The sources had some really practical guidelines too.
They did. Simple but profound advice, like take the time you need to grieve. There's no schedule.
Right, resist that pressure to bounce back.
Absolutely. And express your feelings. Don't bottle up the anger, the anxiety, the guilt. Find safe ways to let them out. Talk, write, cry, whatever works. Suppressing them can be detrimental.
What else?
Establishing some structure for each day, even a simple one, can help when everything feels chaotic. And importantly, do not feel you have to answer all the questions asked of you. It's okay to say you don't want to talk about it.
Setting boundaries.
Yes, and basic self-care. Take good care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally. Eat well, try to sleep, get some gentle exercise if you can. And crucially, give yourself time. Be patient with yourself.
Patience is key.
And make use of rituals. Formal ones like funerals or personal ones like lighting a candle or visiting a special place. They can be incredibly grounding and healing.
That makes sense. What about professional help?
The sources are clear. If intense emotions persist and significantly impact your daily function, don't hesitate to seek professional care. A therapist or counselor specializing in grief can make a huge difference.
Good advice. And finally, there was one more. Expect the unexpected.
Yes, grief can pop up in surprising ways. Sudden waves of sadness, unexpected anger, physical symptoms you didn't connect to grief. Being prepared for that can make it slightly less jarring.
Okay, shifting back to the care setting now. How do care teams, like in palliative or hospice care, actually prioritize the needs and wishes of the dying person and their family?
A foundational concept here is what's called therapeutic presence.
Yeah, therapeutic presence. What does that look like?
It's a way of being with the person. A non-judgmental approach that conveys empathy, genuine support, and deep respect for their individual belief system, their values, their fears. It's about connecting human to human.
Being fully present, not just going through motion.
Exactly. And closely related is dignity and caring. This isn't just one action. It's the fundamental attitude that guides all care.
An attitude.
Yes, embodying compassion, kindness, respect, being non-judgmental. It's about ensuring patients and families feel truly valued as individuals right to the very end, not just as a diagnosis or a set of symptoms.
Valued as people. That's so important. What about planning for the end?
This is where advanced care planning comes in, and it's crucial. Nurses, social workers, physicians, they play a vital role here, helping patients and families define what hope and healing mean to them at this stage.
Helping them articulate their wishes.
Yes, and make informed choices. There are tools, like the FICA tool, which stands for Faith, Importance, Community, Address, that help healthcare providers understand a patient's spiritual beliefs and needs, which are often central at end of life.
FICA. Okay.
And then there are the legal documents, the advanced directives, things like living wills or healthcare power of attorney, and specifically, POLEST forms physician orders for life-sustaining treatment.
POLEST. How is that different from a living will?
A POLST is an actual medical order signed by a doctor. It translates a patient's wishes about specific treatments like CPR, intubation, feeding tubes into actionable instructions for emergency personnel and other providers. It ensures those specific wishes are honored legally, even if the patient can't speak for themselves. It's very powerful.
So it carries real weight in the moment.
Absolutely. It travels with the patient. And all of this complex care, it really underscores the need for interdisciplinary teamwork.
Right. It's not just one person's job.
Definitely not. Care for the dying truly requires multiple professionals. Doctors, nurses, social workers, chaplains, aides, volunteers, all working together, sharing information, respecting each other's expertise, collaborating on a holistic, patient-centered plan. It's about synergy.
That makes sense. And as people near the end, there was a framework mentioned in the sources, Bioch's 4 gifts for saying goodbye. That sounds incredibly poignant.
It really is. Ira Byoch identified 4 key things that can help families and the person dying find closure and peace. They're like emotional tasks for saying goodbye.
4 gifts. What are they? And how can just saying certain things really transform those final
The
moments?
4 gifts are forgiveness, love, gratitude, and farewell.
Forgiveness, love, gratitude, farewell.
Yes. Imagine the relief, the unburdening that can happen when genuine forgiveness is offered, asking for it, please forgive me, and granting it, I forgive you. It can lift so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
Then, reaffirming love,
Mm-hmm.
explicitly saying, I love you. Sometimes we assume people know, but hearing it clearly can mean everything.
Saying the words.
Saying the words. Next, gratitude. Taking a moment to say, thank you. Thank you for being in my life, for specific memories, for acts of kindness, acknowledging the good
Gratitude is powerful.
immensely. And finally, a conscious farewell. Saying goodbye. Acknowledging the parting, giving permission to go, releasing each other. It provides a sense of completion.
These aren't just words, are they? They're like emotional releases.
Exactly. They can profoundly shape the final moments, easing pain, removing burdens, and creating lasting, comforting memories for the family. They pave the way for healthier grieving afterwards.
That's incredibly powerful. Thank you for explaining that. Now, let's shift focus just a bit to the people providing all this care day in, day out. We need to talk about caring for the caregivers, both family members and professionals.
Absolutely vital. Helping bereaved caregivers, even before the death, involves recognizing the immense challenges they face.
What kind of challenge?
Our sources highlight things like adjusting to the constant demands of caregiving, the stress of gathering medical information, managing medications, navigating the healthcare system, and the deep emotional work of helping the patient prepare for death, essentially saying goodbye over time.
They're grieving alongside the patient, in a way. Anticipatory grief.
Often, yes, they're on an emotional roller coaster long before the actual loss occurs. They need support, too.
And what about the professionals? Nurses, doctors, social workers?
For them, self-care isn't a luxury. It's an absolute necessity. Burnout is real. Compassion fatigue is real.
Compassion fatigue. Taking on too much of the suffering.
Exactly. The emotional toll of consistently working with intense suffering, loss, and grief is immense. Recognizing this and actively practicing self-care, setting boundaries, debriefing, finding ways to recharge isn't just good for them. It's crucial for sustaining their ability to provide truly compassionate care to others. You can't pour from an empty cup.
So true. Okay, to really bring all these concepts together, grief, support, hidden struggles, let's look at that case study from the sources. Monica.
Yes, Monica. A powerful example. She was 19, her mother had died, and Monica, who had diabetes, experienced a severe worsening of her condition.
Right. On the surface, it looked purely physical. Her blood sugar was out of control.
But it turned out her diabetes was raging because of suppressed grief. Hidden grief, manifesting physically.
Wow, how did that connection get made?
Monica was presenting with deep sarcasm, some depression, but the root cause wasn't immediately obvious. It took a perceptive nurse, engaging in therapeutic communication, to see beyond the physical symptoms.
So the nursing interaction was key, not just managing the diabetes.
Absolutely pivotal. The nurse didn't just focus on blood sugar levels. She gently probed, asking things like, what's really going on with you, Monica? She listened intently, non-judgmentally.
Creating that safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And recognized that the physical symptoms might be, in a way, a cry for help about the emotional pain. This allowed Monica to start verbalizing the enormous weight she carried about her mother's death, her guilt, her anger.
So the conversation opened the door.
It did. It helped her connect the dots between her emotional distress and her physical state. And ultimately, it empowered Monica to make a conscious decision, to break out of those self-destructive patterns, to find healthier ways to grieve, and to take better care of her diabetes as part of that healing.
Her story really underscores that hidden, unprocessed grief can cause real physical harm, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. A stark reminder of the mind-body connection, especially in grief.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive, a lot to take in.
Yeah, it has.
Just to quickly recap, we've explored the distinct but, interconnected roles of palliative and hospice care, really highlighting how crucial they are in supporting patients and families through serious illness and right at the end of life.
And we've delved into the multifaceted experience of grief itself, clarifying those key terms, loss, grief, mourning, bereavement, actively debunking some of those common myths that can really mislead us.
Right, like the idea of neat stages or just getting over it.
Exactly. And examining that surprising range of different grief categories people might experience: acute, anticipatory, disenfranchised, complicated, ambiguous, Understanding those nuances is so important.
And we looked at mourning not just as feeling, but as active work, those processes of meaning reconstruction, and Warden's tasks accepting reality, processing pain, adjusting, finding that enduring connection.
Yeah, realizing it's an active adaptation.
And crucially, throughout all this, we've discussed the profound importance of empathetic, structured support. For the dying person, yes, but also for those left behind, those who grieve.
Prioritizing that patient-centered care, therapeutic presence, dignity.
Yes, and emphasizing the collaborative strength of those interdisciplinary teams. And not forgetting the caregiver's family and professional, highlighting that vital, often overlooked need for them to prioritize their own well-being to avoid burnout.
Lots of layers to consider.
Definitely. So as you, our listeners, reflect on this deep dive, here's maybe a final thought to mull over.
How might a deeper, more nuanced understanding of grief and end-of-life care, the kind we've talked about today, how might that not only improve our ability to support others in their most vulnerable moments?
Right, but also how might it fundamentally transform how we approach our own losses, our own mortality, and the natural cycles of life and death?
Could it perhaps foster greater resilience, maybe more compassion, both in our communities and ultimately within ourselves?
Something to think about.